Welcome everyone to another episode of Tips from My Garage. My name is Lisiate Tonga. I'm a recovering addict. I'm an author. I'm a business owner. I'm a father of two beautiful boys and a husband to a beautiful wife, and I live in Melbourne, Australia. Today, I want to talk to you about personal responsibility and personal accountability. There is a difference between the two. Personal accountability is all about taking accountability for all of your actions. So, whatever thing it is that you've done, whatever deeds, actions, everything that you've done in your life, taking accountability for that means you're taking ownership of all of those actions as well as the consequences for all of those actions. Personal responsibility would be more relating to taking the responsibility to do whatever it is that's necessary for you to take control of your life and not having to rely on someone else or something else. And the reason I wanted to talk about these things is there are a few reasons. The first one is because everything begins with you. You are you. There's no one else like you. You are unique in this world. You are going through this world with a unique set of eyes and perspectives and experiences. And so your experience will be unique to you, just like my experience is going to be unique to me and everyone else. There's no two people that are going through this world right now that are experiencing the exact same thing and having the same exact experience. So if we look at ourselves as the starting point and we look at the world as that thing that we have to be in to survive, to make the most out of what we have in front of us, then we will be able to see that we have our own experiences, our own set of skills, our own talents to help us be able to navigate through this world in our own unique way. Another reason I wanted to talk about this is because of how it relates to happiness. And that there are many definitions of happiness, and people will have a set of rules for themselves. They A plus B plus C will have to happen in order for them to be happy. And people define happiness as something that could be outside of them, like going to a amusement park will make them happy. Going to play with your friends will make them happy. And so there are many ways that you can be happy or you can feel happiness. But the happiness that I want to talk about is the one that comes from within, that doesn't have anything to do with what's happening in the world, but has everything to do with what's happening inside of you. And that happiness is linked to how well you can be accountable and how well you can take responsibility for yourself. Another reason I wanted to talk about these subjects is because it, personal accountability and personal responsibility is the beginning of change. Without without it, there cannot be any change. There cannot be progress. There cannot be growth. you can't truly be happy if you cannot take responsibility for yourself and for your actions. If everything is happening to you and none of it is your doing or none of it is your fault, then the responsibility then lies somewhere else for or someone else or something else has to fix it in order for you to be happy. And that, in my opinion, is too many variables that are outside of your control that you're allowing to control you and your happiness. So if you're going out in the world and everyone has to treat you a certain way in order for you to be happy, this isn't real happiness. uh, you're not Nothing has to happen on your part, but everything has to happen to you, and that's too risky. It's too many variables. You couldn't really go in the world and truly be happy and content with yourself if the if for example no one is doing what you want them to do or behaving the way that you want them to behave. And so personal accountability and personal responsibility is the beginning of all that. It starts here, it starts now. You can say to yourself, okay, I have had a hard life. I have had a lot of things happen to me. I have experienced my own trauma and I have had all of these things happen. And so as a result, I am the way that I am. And that is because all of these things have happened to me. And while trauma isn't a good thing, and I am empathetic and compassionate towards anyone and everything, what anyone that has experienced trauma. I currently work in an industry where a lot of the kids, a lot of my clients have experienced a lot of trauma. So I'm empathetic and compassionate towards them. But recognizing and acknowledging that these things have happened to you, we don't want to brush that, or you. I'm not saying you should brush all of those things under the carpet like they never actually happened to you. But what I am saying is when you are, even though you have had traumatic things happen to you, you still have a choice. You can still choose to take responsibility from this day forward for the way that your life is going to go from here on out. That's really kind of the whole point of this episode, is just to talk about how, even though you have had things happen to you and perhaps you have made poor decisions in your life as a result of those things, that doesn't mean that someone else made you do anything. What that really means is that, well, at the end of the day, you still have a choice and you can still choose to do things differently. You can still choose to do the right thing, even though the wrong thing has been done to you. I guess what's really important for me to try and convey here is that you take responsibility, that we all take responsibility for our own actions and the consequences that have come as a result of our own actions, and that we don't place that responsibility elsewhere on something else or someone else. So doing that, if you were to go through life having to put the blame constantly on someone else or somewhere else because it's not your fault. This is what I would call a state of victimhood. And you're always the victim. And while a lot of things may have happened to you that weren't right, and you may be justified in feeling a certain way about what has happened, at the end of the day, we're trying to not be hunkered down by our past, but we're trying to move forward in our future. We don't want to be stuck in our past, being bolted to the ground by our previous traumas. We want to break free. We want to break free from those things, acknowledging that those things happen, but taking control of today and responsibility for ourselves today to make a better decision for tomorrow and for our future. And you cannot do that if you are in a state of victimhood, if you're constantly blaming someone else or something else. Like no one can do anything to you without your permission. You have to allow them to be able to affect you a certain way. If somebody swears at you or somebody is rude to you, like say online, somebody has just started bashing you online, you can be you can react to that and just be hostile towards them back. And you may be justified, you may feel like you're justified in that instance, and you may also say to yourself, well, they made me do this. If he hadn't have said this or she hadn't have said that, then I wouldn't have reacted the way that I did. But the truth of it is, you you actually chose to react the way that you did, believe it or not. Even though it felt like you may have been pressured into behaving a certain way or reacting a certain way, it was still your choice to make that decision and to react the way that you had reacted. So that would be one way to respond to something like that. But you could, in that same instance, just say to yourself, hey, you know, that's okay. Well, it's not okay that they're saying these things, but do I need to get a rise out of that? Or can I just maintain and stay poised and just say, hey, you know what? This isn't really worth it. I don't want this to affect my state of being in a negative way. I still want to be in control of myself and in control of my emotions, and I don't want to have somebody else affect me negatively so that I respond negatively and perhaps I have a bad day as a result. That's a completely different way for you to respond to a situation like that. And so that's what I'm trying to get at with taking personal responsibility, taking accountability, is being able to put yourself in check when it's necessary for you to do so. It's to be in control when you're highly charged. And this is a challenge for all of us. It's a challenge for me as well at times, and especially with my children, like trying to be patient with little kids, and for myself having such high expectations of them. But if they don't behave the way that I want them to behave, I can choose to react and get angry, or I can choose to be patient and to be loving. And those are two different choices, but I have to take responsibility for the way that I'm behaving and the way that I'm affecting other people around me. And it's not just affecting other people, it's also affecting me. Things that you do, they don't just, you're not just doing it to somebody else, you're also doing it to yourself. the whole victimhood thing, I know in this day and age, it's like a virtuous thing for some reason. I'm not quite sure why is that. We're like in today, like victimhood is the thing. It's like, let's try and see who can have the most victim points or whatever this is. But you really truly cannot be good within yourself if you are playing a victim game where the responsibility isn't yours but it's somewhere else. You cannot truly be live a fulfilling existence, a meaningful life, if you are going around playing the victim. This this is not, it's not even virtuous. It's just, it's not, it's actually a waste of time. I would hate to be one of those people that has gone through 10, 20 years of victimhood only to get to the end of my life and then look back at the things that I've done and just come to a realization that perhaps I could have made some different choices. Perhaps I could have done things a little bit differently. You can't control anyone else. You can't compel people to do things to you can't force people to do things or to behave a certain way. You don't have control over that. The only thing that you have control over is you. And y- you control the way that you conduct yourself, the way that you lead your life. You control all those things. Don't be a victim. Victimhood is a hard place to be. Playing the victim role is easier. It's an easy it's an easier existence. It's a seemingly easier existence because it doesn't feel bad, because the the problem is somewhere else, and someone else did this or something else did this to you. And so because it wasn't you, that's easier for you to accept. What's difficult to accept is the perhaps the decisions that you have made, the poor decisions that you have made in your life. That's a hard thing to accept. If you've made a series of poor decisions throughout your life, and as a result you've had um, terrible consequences, you've had your life restricted, you've had a lot of limitations placed on your life as a result of it. Coming to a realization and just saying to yourself, yes, it was me. I take full responsibility for those actions. That's not an easy thing to do, to take accountability for the things that you've done. And so but the thing is, even though that is a difficult thing to do, it's absolutely necessary for you to confront yourself this way and to feel that discomfort that comes with taking accountability. Because it is only when you have taken accountability, you've taken ownership of the decisions that you have made on your life, that you can then start making changes to your life. But until that happens, you cannot do that. And you're stuck in this victimhood state. And that is a terrible place to be. And it is not virtuous, and it's not becoming, it is not sexy, it's not cool. It's just, I don't know. I guess for me personally, I can't be around people that are constantly blaming their surroundings and everything else that's going on in their life. It just, for me, it's an absolute downer. And I don't know that I would be alone in that. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of people like me actually who can't be around that. You really want to surround yourself with people that are positive, good energy, because you're going to feed off of those positive vibes, and you're going to be moved in a more positive direction. You get yourself around 5 or 10 people that are constantly vibing in a good way, that are have a level of personal responsibility and accountability. You can only get better. And you take the other side of that coin, and you surround with yourself with other people who believe that they are victims, and maybe justified, so, or whatever. They've had a lot of trauma in their lives, or whatever the case may be, but they're constantly being negative and blaming each other. I mean, honestly, they're like crabs in a bucket. And you don't want to really be around people like that, because they're not going to be inspiring, they're not going to be motivating, they're not going to lift you up. Crabs in a bucket, all they do is pull each other down. And you don't want to be caught in circles like that. There are a couple of things that I think that you can do to help. I know that have actually helped me. And one of the things that I do quite a bit is I love to read. I'm an avid reader. I actually didn't start reading until I was 29 years old. Well, no, sorry. I've read a lot, but I didn't read purposefully to for personal gain, or for self improvement, until I was around 29 years old. And then ever since then, I never stopped. But I do want to talk about reading books, and I think we'll do that on another episode. But one of the books that I love so much is this one here, which is called Extreme Ownership, and it's written by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. And these two guys were in the Navy SEALs, and they have great stories about their tours that they had in the Middle East. And what they have done is they've taken all of the lessons that they learned in the wars, and in the tours that they did in the Middle East, and they have converted all of those into business models for businesses. And now I know that there are companies that use their extreme ownership models to improve their own businesses and their bottom lines. And one of the great stories that come out of this book is by Jocko Willink. And he was one of the leaders in his group. I'm not really good at using the terminology for the Army and Navy and stuff like that, but he was one of the leaders in his group in the Middle East, and he's responsibility for all of these men. And I believe that one of he was he and his men were caught in a situation where he had to make decisions, or they made decisions as a group, and somebody ended up getting killed. And then he had to go back to his commanders or his leaders, and then he had to explain to them what happened. And he was talking about how, there was this person that could have done this differently, and I can blame him, because if that hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have done it, or that wouldn't have happened, or this person failed to do this thing, and so I can blame him. Because if he would have done what he was supposed to do, then this whole thing wouldn't have happened. And the whole time he was thinking about how he was going to escape the blame, or escape the responsibility for what he was for the situation and for the guy that died. But he instead went in there to the leaders, and he said, "Hey, we all went out. I was the leader, and I had made the calls, and I had done this, and I had done that. And as a result, a man has died. And so I take full responsibility for everything that had happened, because he was the leader." And so he took a risk at that point, because he knew that at that point he could have lost his job, or something else could have happened. Maybe he would have been discharged, maybe dishonorably, or I don't know. He took complete, and I guess you could call it extreme. He took extreme ownership of that situation by making no excuses and by taking full accountability of what had happened in that situation, when he could have easily put the blame somewhere else, or he probably could have gotten away with placing the blame somewhere else on, and getting away, not getting away, but justified himself in that whole situation. And so I love that story of Jocko Willink, and his extreme ownership. And I believe that that's something that we really, if we really want to be successful in life, we have to take full responsibility for our actions and our consequences. We are the ones who are responsible for everything that we're doing or everything that we're not doing to get to where we want to go. And if we are not successful by now, then it is not someone else's fault. It is our fault. If we are not living the life that we've always wanted to live, um, you know, and perhaps this has happened and that has happened and this has happened, no one else, it's no one else's responsibility, or no one else, it falls to no one else except for yourself. And the sooner that you can come to grips with taking full responsibility and taking extreme ownership of your decisions and your life, once you can do that, you can start to make better decisions, and you can start the change process, and you can start to progress, and you can start to grow, because you're constantly putting yourself in check. You're constantly putting yourself under the microscope, and it's going to push you to give yourself to it's going to push you to have higher expectations of yourself. When you're taking responsibility of yourself, you want to be better than what you currently are. You want to do better than what you're currently doing. So reading books is a really important way to be able to help you to increase your knowledge on personal accountability and responsibility. And this book, Extreme Ownership, is a great way to start that. There's so many books on taking ownership, but this is a classic, and it's an outstanding one. The other thing I would suggest that you do is to be influenced by the right people. And I think one of the best people on this earth right now that uh, you can allow to influence you on personal accountability and personal responsibility is this guy here. His name is David Goggins. I'm sure you've all heard of him. Now, this is his second book called Never Finished. But his first book, Can't Hurt Me, I've got it on my Audible, and I'm pretty sure that I've listened to that book 5 or 6 times. And if you don't follow David Goggins, I think if you can look past, or he does cuss a lot, but that's just the way he is, and that's the way he's just he's just black and white. You just don't get anything in between with him. Pardon me, I bought my wife the book Can't Hurt Me, and encouraged her to read it, but she couldn't read it and get into him because he's too raw, and he's my wife needs a little bit more caressing than that when it comes to personal development. She needs a little bit more pampering. For me, I kind of like things cut and dried. I kind of like, let's get from point A to point B as soon as possible and cut through all the crap. And David Goggins is a great person to follow that will help you to be able to cut through the crap, and to cut through the excuses, and to cut through all the blaming, and cut through the state of victimhood that you might be stuck in, and then help you to start progressing on a path of personal responsibility and accountability. So there's a lot of people that you can that can influence you to on accountability and responsibility. But you also at the same time want to be really careful about how you're being who you're being influenced by, because some people, some influencers are out there to enable to or to try and reinforce your victimhood. And I know that may sound good to you, because to the carnal mind and to our natural tendencies, we actually like to hear things like that, but they aren't actually good for you. They are damaging, actually, and they're destructive. And because they do not help you to progress into life, they keep you stagnated, and they keep you at a standstill. And that existence is just a really, it's a real slippery slope. So you got to be really careful about how you're influencing. If things are hard to hear, as in like, oh, I don't like the way he's talking to me because he's calling me fat, or he's calling me like weak, or he's calling me this or this kind of names. um Sometimes the truth is really hard to hear, and but it's absolutely necessary for you to hear. You have to be able to look past or sit with the discomfort in that, because if you can and allow that to work into you, you will see that behind all of that, that the masking and all the poor decision making, there is you, and you can't escape that. As many times as you can layer it or put layers on top of it or try to pad it, underneath all of that, at the end of the day, you were the person that got you to where you are. And sometimes people have a hard time hearing the truth of things, but I'm telling you, just from, and I guess this is my personal experience, is that it's I kind of enjoy it when people tell me, hey, you're not doing this properly, you got to do it this way, that you've done this way, and you're terrible at that. Don't do that, do it this way. you know that might be a little bit hard for me to hear, but if I look past all that, or just accept it as, hey, look, I need to get better, I know that this person is just trying to help me to be better, and at the end of the day, if it is true, then I just have to accept that that's part of taking responsibility and being accountable for my own actions. If you can accept that you made that poor decision, then you can go and make a better decision over here. So that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I hope that is helpful in some way to you. I'm just trying to do my best with what I have. It's my third episode, and so I'm actually open to feedback as well. So if you have any feedback on what I'm saying or what I'm doing, then I'm happy to hear it. But I just want you to know that I know that I'm not really good at doing this right now, and so my thoughts can be all over the place. My words can be all over the place. But I do hope that you can stay with me and just look, kind of, when I get caught out in the weeds, to just kind of weed through all of that and to find something that might be helpful. And if I've done that, if you've been able to find something that's going to help you to put off victimhood and accept personal responsibility so that you can start making positive changes, then in my opinion, boom, it's like that's a win. That's really the point. What I really wanted to start this whole kind of podcast series with personal taking personal accountability and responsibility, because I know how important that is to actually everything else that I would really want to talk to you about. Because if you can grasp that you need to take control over yourself, and that everything that you have done in your life is a result of the decisions that you've made, then everything else that's going to come, you'll be able to onboard much easier. Conversely, if you stay stuck in this victimhood mentality and you're still blaming your past or your trauma or this person or that person or this group or that group, then I don't know what to tell you, but maybe hopefully one of these episodes will be able to I might say something that would be helpful, because I do want to be able to help everybody, but unfortunately, like, if you have trouble with taking personal responsibility, and if you're stuck in the blame game, then unfortunately there's not much that I can actually do to help. Don't know that there's much that anyone else could do to help, to be honest, but anyways, I hope that this has been helpful, and please let me know feedback if you have any, and maybe other subjects that you think that I might be able to cover. This is only my third episode, so I'm really looking forward to this whole journey. I'm doing this so I can get better at it. I know I'm not doing a very good job at this time, but it's a work in progress, and I can I can only get better if I keep doing it, and that's what I'm gonna do.
1, 2.